We lived on Rector Street. I moved in on September 1, 2001.
Oh.
10 days into my tenure, I was woken up because all the windows glass blew in.
Hey.
Like our whole apartment exploded.
Shit.
And
Thank God your son wasn't with you.
I was like, thank God he wasn't with me. And I just remember like panicking and like putting on shorts and like, they're up and they're like, what do we do? And I was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And they're like, do not leave the house. It's the worst thing you can do. And I was like, all right, fuck that. I'm leaving. Like, good luck, guys. And I bailed and I went outside and it was just like, it was like PTSD is something I don't, especially because I'm friends with a lot of former soldiers. My kid brother's a veteran. I don't use that lightly, but like I could describe for you in the most vivid detail. Like if I could export this, if I could draw, I could paint for you a frame by frame, 24 frames per second, what I experienced for the preceding 4 hours with the most vivid smells, tastes, colors, everything. Like stepped outside of my apartment and I just see someone frantically, not in uniform, a human, just fucking dressed like you or I, just running around frantically with a stack of sheets this high, taking the sheets with one hand, wringing it out and then dropping them. And I'm like, what the fuck is that person doing? And as they drop them, they'd turn red. And I realized they were dropping those sheets on remains that had fallen. And when I realized that, my brain just, nothing can compute.
Remains of human beings.
That had fallen from the plane.
To mark them.
To cover them for dignity's sake.
Sheets. I thought you were talking about like sheets of like
no,
loose leaf paper.
Sheets, bed sheets.
Oh,
white
my
cloth
God.
bed sheets. And like my brain, like now I couldn't understand that.
Yeah.
And then I definitely couldn't understand. And I just like got on my bike and like I had my video camera and I was like trying to bike away. And I like stopped and I just see like all these cops running in and I see like paper falling and it's like, could not make sense of it. And then like a fireman just starts screaming. I'm like, get out of here. Like for my own safety, was not being a jerk. And I was like, start biking away and then just like heat, like you never imagine, just throws me off my bike. And that was the second plane hitting. Wow. Like skin my knees, get up. And like race to Van's apartment on 14th Street and I like get Van and like what do we do? And I was like, we gotta go to the hospital. Like, we gotta go help people. And like we went to St. Vincent's. St. Vincent's, rest in peace. This has been closed down and turned into overpriced condominiums. And we were like out front there and like helping. And I just remember like no one knew what to do. And I remember like the cops showed up and the cops were like, who's in charge, who's in charge? And I was like, what's the question? And they're like, what do we do? And I was like, I need you to shut down that street, shut down traffic here, only let the ambulances through, create a way for the ambulance to come through. You have flares? They're like, they're in the trunk. I was like, get the flares. And I was literally on New York 1, like fucking commanding the situation as like a 20-year-old outside of St. Vincent's because there was just nothing. And I remember like the one thing I was like is like, we have to start lining shit up. And they're like, we're out of cots. And I was like, get rolling chairs, put sheets over, line them up. We had like all this. They're like, everybody was ready. And no one came. Like there was no one to be saved. And it was like, that's where I was standing. Like, you know that view on 6th Ave, looking straight down at the World Trade Centers? They're right there. And I just like stand there in slow motion watching them fall. And it was like CGI before CGI. It was like so like this flower. There was like a beauty to it that was like, it was like you're watching, you're like, I don't know what I'm seeing, but that's not real.
It's
like,
too crazy for you to even comprehend.
Yeah. Did you film any of it? Like,
I mean, I have a couple shots of me biking away, and I've made videos about it, but like I'm biking away and the camera's behind me. At one point in time, I switch hands and it crosses my face. And you can go through it frame by frame and you just see like the terror on my face, So in any event, that was cool.
Do you think that moment affected the way you viewed creation or like the way you lived your life after that? Like it is a traumatic
how does that
event.
change you?
No, I mean, I remember like vividly calling like my dad, like I called like my kid's mom, like crying. I was like, get him out of school. And she's like, Casey's fine. He's fine. And like I called my dad and my dad was like, it's time to come home. It's time to come back to Connecticut. And I just remember like being like, what are you talking about? Like, how dare you? I'm like, no, I'm not coming back. And then I called the husband of the cousins that we lived with because he was sort of a mentor. And he was like, it's time to come back. And I was like, I'm not coming back. And I was like, no, this is it. Like, I can make it through this, then I'm good. Like, I'm good.
And
then that was when I got like the SRO and like I started to figure it out after that. Like, it started to make sense after that.
My brother I was in high school at the time. I was going to high school, Baruch College Campus High School. So I was up on 23rd. My brother was going to middle school. There's a middle school a couple blocks away from the Trade Center. And he was like calling my parents because all the kids got to use the payphone to like call home, and like looks out the window and he sees people jumping out and hitting the ground. And I always think about that for him specifically. Like, imagine having a little anxiety as a kid and then seeing a literal worst case catastrophic situation happen in formative years of your life.
Sure.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like how that can affect you.
How do you get past that? How do you
I think about your brother a couple times a year with that story. That would be the most, I don't know how you overcome that, man.
I just remember the energy that day. Like, I remember they wouldn't let us leave school. And then when we didn't know, the first thing was we thought we were being attacked. Like, I thought there was going to be an army of some country, I don't know who the fuck, like walking through the streets. And I was like, do we get guns? Like, I didn't know what was going on. Like, you can't even comprehend. Yeah, planes flew into the building.
Yeah.
It just wasn't at any part of our culture
On
that these like
purpose, as an
suicide
attack,
bombers would
yeah.
exist. Yeah, it was incomprehensible. And then my friend Carlos shows up to school, and he shows up late, and he had one more lateness before they called his parents. And he showed up late, and he's like, please don't call my parents. And the teachers were like, this is your final lesson. He goes, no, you don't understand. Like, I saw a plane go and hit the World Trade Center. That's why I'm late.
They weren't buying his excuse. You gotta do better than that.
Yeah.
Bro, and it was just like, and then once we found out, we're like, and you still came to school? It was just this like crazy collection of events. You guys have actually all met Carlos. He came to the Radio City show.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, just an unbelievable day, man.
Yeah. What was the energy like in the city following that? Like the 2 weeks
Man,
after?
there were like fucking tanks. There weren't tanks, but there were Humvees, like up-armored Humvees, military. It was just wild. I just like, that night, the night of September 11th.
Quiet.
It was like, I've only been scared twice in my life. Like, the only time in my life, I can only remember like laying in bed being genuinely scared. And that was one of those times, like only twice, my whole fucking life. I've slept at 21,000 feet. Like, I've slept in the death zone. I've slept in fucking Afghanistan during the war, where like we get woken up out of bed and we have to go climb into concrete tubes because the base is being attacked. Like, I've been in some fucked up situations before. And like, slept on the streets of Prague with Dean. Like, I've been in some fucked up situations and not like nothing. No fear whatsoever.
Why that night?
Because like, if you remember the F-16s, fucking trying to fall asleep, super low flying F-16s, and just the uncertainty. You're like, where does this end? There's no internet, there's no Twitter.
That's the other thing.
All you have is New York One and fucking CNN.
And the way that we reflect on it, it's like, here are these 5 isolated attacks, and then it's over. But at that point, we didn't know it was over.
No, you have no idea.
It could
All
continue.
planes are grounded. You know, you've got.
But you hear an F-16, you're like,
The
wait a minute,
president's
is
in the
that the
bunker.
next plane that's
That's
going to
right.
hit a fucking building?
Or are they shooting something down? It's like, how do we get out of the
Wow.
city? My roommates that were like, don't leave, don't leave. We didn't hear from them for 5 days.
I was just about to ask what happened to them.
They found, so what happened was the fire department was doing door to door. They found them because after the buildings fell, all that broken glass just turned into dust.
Also, keep in mind, like, for everybody watching at home, is like the area that you were in is ground zero adjacent.
It's very
So
right,
you're
so we're up against the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
So you're getting hit by the dust.
They got trapped.
And their windows are already blown in.
Yeah, so the
whatever
fire department
debris-
pulled them out, put them on a boat that brought them to a school in New Jersey. But they didn't have cell phones or anything. So like they called their loved ones their parents, but it wasn't like we were calling their parents. So we just didn't know.
Yeah.
And we finally figured out they were fine, but like,
God.
like there's no, like thank God I left.